Psalms 37, 4 through 6.
Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Delight yourself in the Lord. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in Him, and He will do this. Commit your way to the Lord.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Jord.
Evening, Phil.
And hello, Ethan.
Hello, Phil.
Great to have you on tonight, Ethan. Thanks for joining us.
It's all right. Great to see you both.
So go, Jord.
So I was just about to, I think I was about to say what you were about to say, Phil. We're going to be carrying on tonight in the Psalms, as we've been doing nearly throughout from the last year, Phil. Can't believe it's been a year that we've been joining on these videos and sharing some thoughts about the Psalms. But we're going to carry on. We're sort of getting towards the end of book 1. And we're going to be thinking about Psalm 37 tonight. Last time we looked at Psalm 36, didn't we, Phil?
Yes, that's right. That was quite a powerful psalm, looking at the wicked. And what themes do you think we've got in this psalm that we've considered already, Jord?
Well, I'm not sure. We might discover a few of these tonight with Ethan, but I'm not sure any sort of jump out off the page to me. But we've definitely got a title. We can see that this is another one of David's psalms. But perhaps as we go through it tonight, we might see some of those. And perhaps if I read this psalm now for us, we can then, as we're reading, perhaps spot some of the themes that we've thought about over the last few weeks as well. So let's read Psalm 37 together. Okay. Psalm 37, Psalm of David. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass, and wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and He shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Commit thy way unto the Lord, trust also in Him, and He shall bring it to pass. And He shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light, and thy judgments as the noonday. Rest in the Lord, and wait patiently for Him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. Cease from anger, and forsake wrath. Fret not thyself in any wise to do evil, for evildoers shall be cut off. But those that wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. Yea, they shall diligently consider his place, and it shall not be. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. The wicked plotteth against the just, and gnasheth upon him with his teeth. The Lord shall laugh at him, for he seeth that his day is coming. The wicked have drawn out the sword, and have bent their bow, to cast down the poor and needy, and to slay such as be of upright conversation. Their sword shall enter into their own heart, and their bows shall be broken. A little that a righteous man hath is better than the riches of many wicked. For the arms of the wicked shall be broken, but the Lord upholdeth the righteous. The Lord knoweth the days of the upright, and their inheritance shall be forever. They shall not be ashamed in the evil time, and in the days of famine they shall be satisfied. But the wicked shall perish, And the enemies of the Lord shall be as the fat of lambs. They shall consume. Into smoke shall they consume away. The wicked borroweth and payeth not again, but the righteous showeth mercy and giveth. For such as be blessed of him shall inherit the earth, and they that be cursed of him shall be cut off. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholdeth him with his hand. I have been young, and now am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. He is ever merciful, and lendeth, and his seed is blessed. Depart from evil, and do good, and dwell for evermore. For the Lord loveth judgment, and forsaketh not his saints. They are preserved for ever, but the seed of the wicked shall be cut off. The righteous shall inherit the land, and dwell therein for ever. The mouth of the righteous speaketh wisdom, and his tongue talketh of judgment. The law of his God is in his heart. None of his steps shall slide. The wicked watcheth the righteous, and seeketh to slay him. The Lord will not leave him in his hand, nor condemn him when he is judged. Wait on the Lord, and keep his way, and he shall exalt thee to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, thou shalt see it. I have seen the wicked in great power, and spreading himself like a green bay tree. Yet he passed away, and lo, he was not. Yea, I sought him, but he could not be found. Mark the perfect man, and behold the upright, for the end of that man is peace. But the transgressors shall be destroyed together. The end of the wicked shall be cut off. But the salvation of the righteous is of the Lord. He is their strength in the time of trouble, and the Lord shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them, because they trust in him. So definitely links on with that aspect of enemies that you just alluded to earlier, Phil, with Psalm 36. But look to Ethan now to share some thoughts on Psalm 37 for us.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jord, for that reading. You'll probably notice as we read that there's lots of passages, lots of verses that talk about the wicked and what's going to happen to the wicked, and then what will happen to the righteous, and what we find will happen. So just to speak about that point, I'm going to read a few verses from Matthew 25, and you may know this. This is the parable of the sheep and the goats, and this is the separation. So this is where my mind first went to. So Matthew 25 and verse 31 to 33, and I'll read that quickly for you. It says, "When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divided his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, and the goats on the left." So we have the sheep on the right and the goats on the left. So for me, if I take anything from this talk, it would be that Psalm 37 is those two verses, and I would just have opened them up, spread them out, and this is what would have come out of it, because you have the comparison between the righteous on the right and the unrighteous on the left. Okay, let's get into it. Let's lead in. Let's look at chapter 36 and the last verse of chapter 36. And it says, "There are the workers of iniquity fallen. They are cast down and shall not be able to rise." So this is how David finishes his last psalm. And I found it beautiful, the lead in. So we have the verse 1 of chapter 37, So we have chapter 12 of chapter 36, verse 12. The works of iniquity, they've been cast down, they've fallen. And then verse 1, fret not thyself because of the evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity. So I think it's lovely that David, he then opens up this almost, you can hear the chorus come in and he's saying, don't fret yourself because the works of iniquity have been cast down. Yes, George.
I was just going to say it's really lovely. Not that long ago, Ethan, we had a video on the order of the Psalms, and Richard, wasn't he, Phil, was talking about how the Psalms have been placed in Scripture. They're not necessarily chronological in order, but it's lovely that you've just brought that out. That it seems to follow on from the previous Psalm, almost like you've got the verse 12 of if we stayed there, the works of iniquity have fallen, like you said, and God is saying in the next Psalm, like you just brought out, fret not thyself. And I just thought it was really lovely to think back to one of the videos, and Richard, I don't think, brought this psalm out, did he, Phil, in that session? So we're seeing it again in a different example.
Yeah, and that word envious, chapter 1, if I said to you, what color would you think of? If there's a phrase we use when we say something with envy, that's the one. George's pointing at his wall for those listening, and it's a green wall. So we'd say green with envy. And then we come on to the next verse, and it says, towards the end, like the grass, and wither as the green herb. And I love that because it just stuck out to me as if we become envious and we become green with envy, we'll become just like the green herbs of the field and the grass, and we'll wither away. So what I got out of that, we mustn't be envious. Let's not look at those people who follow the iniquity and idol worshippers, and we mustn't go envious of that. Let's keep going. Verse 3, so shalt thou trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. So with this verse, I instantly thought about, this is obviously the covenant that God made with Abraham about the Israelites into the land. And trying to relate it to our current lives, I think of God saying, he's saying, dwell in the land. And instantly what hit my mind was the ecclesia, because if we're dwelling in the ecclesia, we'll be fed. And if we're spending time with those around us in the meeting, then it's more likely that those workers of iniquity, we won't be surrounded by them. And by spending time dwelling in the land, we'll be fed. Which I really like that idea. I think it's quite hard, maybe being over Zoom at the moment. It's harder to spend time with people in our ecclesia. But yeah.
It reminded me a little bit, thinking about the aspect of green and being fed and the grass, back to Psalm 23.
The shepherd metaphor.
Yeah, exactly, with that aspect of being, he makes us lie down by green pastures, and I got that in my Bible as tender grass. And I just thought it was interesting when you went to the sheep and the goats, Ethan, that sheep tend to eat the grass, whereas a goat, we've got goats in a farm just down the road from us, and you watch them and they just forage and they just eat
everything.
And I think that's just a beautiful metaphor, isn't it? That we need to be like the sheep under God's care as our shepherd, and not like the goats in that way of the wicked, as you've been bringing out. So I thought it was a lovely sort of building block to sort of head this psalm.
Well, David, as a shepherd, really would have observed the grass withering as well, because get the hot summer sun, and you've got to move your sheep on somewhere else because of what we'll use as dried up grass. You can't keep your sheep fed on that. So, as you mentioned, you don't want to envy the wicked because it looks pretty good. You see people on social media, or you think, oh wow, I wish I could be them, all their fame and their popularity and all the people that follow them. But actually, that's just like verse 1, being envious of the wrongdoers, but they'll fade just like the green herb.
And it's nice because the following verse, delight thyself also in the Lord, and he will give thee the desires of thy heart. And you could take this verse out of context, I think, and you could say, well, this verse says that God will give me anything that I want. If I ask God for anything, then why won't God give it to me? But we have to take it in context. And when we're dwelling in the ecclesia, when we align ourselves with what God wants, and even the verse says, delight thyself in the Lord. When we take on the ideologies that God wants us to have, then the desires of our hearts will be what God wants it to be. So we won't be asking for maybe what those who are the workers of iniquity maybe falling prey to.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the really important point, isn't it? You've got this almost contrast between envy, where you want something you really shouldn't have, or delighting in what God wants, and then He'll give you that. So it's that, what's your choice, as you said. Yeah, great.
Yeah, okay. So then verse 5 begins, commit thy way unto the Lord. That word commit there means to roll back. And I like these verses because it shows we really don't have to do. God isn't asking us for much, really. This verse is saying, commit thy ways, roll back unto the Lord, trust in Him. He shall bring it to pass. Verse 6, and He shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light. And then it goes on, rest in the Lord and wait patiently on Him. It doesn't stop. All we need to do is roll back on the Lord, and He'll take care of the rest.
There's a nice link there. I just got a little note in my Bible that idea of rolling thy way to the Lord, like you said, Ethan. I think it's the same Hebrew. Correct me if I'm wrong. In Psalm 22, verse 8.
Yes. Yeah.
Where it says exactly the same thing. We went through this psalm, didn't we, Phil, with Archie? Yeah. We brought out how it was a psalm about speaking of Jesus. And it says in Psalm 22, verse 8, he trusted on the Lord that He would deliver him. Let Him deliver him, seeing He delighted in him. And we can see a living example there of someone who did, trust in the Lord and commit his way to God. And God did deliver him. And that can be a really comforting thing, like you were saying, Ethan, for us to dwell upon.
Yeah, and I guess it wasn't even, we're not told that Jesus rolled away the stone. So maybe that we don't even need to, we need to roll back, but it was with the help of God that stone was rolled back. So we need to allow it to happen, really. Yeah, that word wait there in verse 7 as well, that means it's like a binding and a twisting together, which I think is really nice, because you have that image. I'm not sure where it talks about the three chords are stronger together.
Ecclesiastes 4 verse 12, I think, that one.
Mm-hmm. And that image of us being wound together, like a fisherman with his rope, and when we're wound together, we're even stronger that way.
Absolutely.
And then verses 8 and 9 are very similar to what we see in verses 1 and 2. So they talk about we shouldn't fret being righteous. Don't fret, because the evildoers they'll be cut down. They'll be cut away. And then we get to verse 10. I like this verse. My mind definitely went back to being in primary school, because it says, "For yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be." And I remember coming home to Dad and complaining that there was someone in my class that was really stopping the class from proceeding and from carrying on. And Dad saying, "Don't worry, Ethan, that it will filter out as you keep on trying to do your best." Those just how it's spoken about in this entire chapter. The wicked, it filters out, especially when, as we spoke about in verse 3, when you're dwelling in the ecclesia and you're with the righteous, it's easier for the wicked to be cut away that way.
I think it's interesting. Oh, sorry, Phil.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yeah, sometimes when you're in the middle of that frustrating time where the wicked or the people that are not following God might be providing pressure on you or things like that, you can think, well, this could just feels like it's going on forever. That's a really, I guess, wise thing your dad shared with you, is many things don't last forever. We just have to see them through. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting with what you were saying, Ethan, how that phrase "fret not thyself" has appeared, as you alluded to. I think this is the third time already by verse 8 that we get that phrase, and I always think similar. It's interesting that we go back to our youth. I remember my mum always saying to me, "You're such a fretter, Jordan. Like, you're always fretting about this and that." And it's so true, isn't it? Like, things come up in life, like you've been saying, that at the time seemed like such a big issue, and there might be things that we're going through now that seem huge, and we fret about them, don't we? And what's beautiful about this psalm that you're bringing out is, the psalmist saying, fret not yourself. God is going to deliver you if you commit your way to him. And I just thought it was interesting. I don't think that phrase has appeared before in any of the psalms yet, has it, Phil? Or can you remember?
Just thinking now. Psalm 18, I think, verse 7.
What's that? The word fret?
Yes, yeah, the same sort of idea of fretting. It's God is, I guess, fretting, but not in the way we would think of worrying about something. He is the one who's wrath, it says in Psalm 18, verse 7 in my Bible. It says, the earth reeled and rocked, the foundations, also the mountains trembled and quaked because he was angry. That's that same Hebrew word as fretting that we've had. So when we fret, we're worrying about what's going to happen and sort of shaking sometimes in anxiety. Here, God is almost similar sort of shaking, but because he's waiting to deliver David from his enemies. So a bit of a contrasting idea.
Yeah. They're saying, don't fret because it shall not be. It says the wicked shall not be. Let's turn to verse 35 and verse 36 of this same chapter. So we'll skip ahead a little bit. And this is where it talks about the great tree. So it says, I have seen the wicked in great power and spreading himself like a green bay tree. Yet he passed away, and lo, he was not. Yea, I sought him, but he could not be found. And I loved how, Jord, you read this, and I loved the expression you put on this, because I can't help but see a bit of David's humorous side in these two verses, because he's saying you are such a great, a huge tree, and I looked and you just weren't there anymore. So it's almost like the parable of the sower, and it's the seed that fell on the rocky ground, and it sprung up, and then it withered away really quickly. I did a bit of digging on this verse, and a green bay tree, might find this interesting. A bay tree, otherwise called a sweet bay, and they grow up to around 2 story high, about 9 to 18 meters. And he describes it as spreading himself. And I immediately went to think about quite a wide, broad expansion of this tree. But when you search up bay tree, it's quite tall. It doesn't really spread itself out very much. So I was a little bit confused with this verse. So there were a few writers who suggested that word spreading is more the word towering. So it was tall, and it was more overpowering, less than spreading itself out. So that's green bay tree. I guess that's another instance of the word green being used in this chapter.
It sort of reminded me as well, thinking about trees and how they're there one minute and gone the next, of the story in Daniel of of Nebuchadnezzar when he has that dream of the tree, and then he sort of, the tree goes, and it's almost, an image of how his empire of Babylon is fallen. And he forgets about the dream, and he starts looking at and saying how amazing Babylon is. And then God really I know we've looked at this before when I think a different part, but it's all this aspect of pride, which is one of those characteristics that is ungodly, that God, wants to try and draw from us. And he does seem to do that from Nebuchadnezzar. But then in the contrast of that, it reminded me of back all the way to Psalm 1 about how we have to be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that bring forth his fruit. And that's the tree that I think we need to try and be like. That's the tree of the righteous, not the tree of Nebuchadnezzar, or this bay tree, as you spoke about, Ethan, that spreads itself out. It's there 1 minute, as the verse said, but then gone the next, just like the grass.
Yeah, well, I prefer your version to that to mine. I was going to say the Tower of Babel, but yours very much involved the tree. So I was just thinking that the building was completely stopped. They stopped work on it because they couldn't speak. But yeah, I prefer yours. I'll have to steal yours too.
No, okay. I can see why you said that one as well, about the idea of growing up. And they both link nicely, don't they?
Yeah, so let's turn back then to verse 11. That's where we finished off. And this verse ends. I'll read the verse for you. But the meek shall inherit the earth and shall delight themselves in the abundance of. And I thought it was going to say the abundance of all the food and the multitude of wildlife, and enjoy all the abundance of creation. But it's the abundance of peace. And maybe this is just me, but I never thought peace as being described as being in abundance. So I looked up this word peace, and it's the meaning of freedom from disturbance. And I'd never really thought about that before. But correct me if I'm wrong, but you can still be at peace. You can still have peace in your life when you're working. So it's not the fact that you're peaceful, that you're at rest, that you're not doing any work, that the meek won't have any work to do, they'll just be sitting underneath trees and relaxing all day. But it's that there's freedom from the disturbance that would take them away from doing the work of God, which I think is really nice, because you can having peace in our lives, we shouldn't be thinking of, we can go and relax on the beach all day, but it's more that we can have the peace in our lives to then work hard and with all of our heart towards the good and righteous things. And I had never had that picture in my mind of peace not being something that is just relaxing, but you can still be hard at work and still have peace in your life, which I really like.
Yeah, for David, it was a big thing because he had enemies so often. We've looked at many Psalms where he had enemies, and that wouldn't have been very peaceful when they were, saying nasty things or hunting down his life. So he would have just so much longed for that.
Yeah. Okay. The next verse talks about gnashing. So if you think of gnashing, you think of beasts, a wild beast. So this is describing the wicked. So the wicked, they're plotting against the just, and they're gnashing with their teeth. And you will have studied this back in Psalm 35 and verse 16. It says, with hypocritical mockers in feast, they gnashed upon me with their teeth. And then verse 17, Lord, how long wilt thou look on? Rescue my soul from their destructions, my darling from the lions. So that almost, you definitely have this picture of broad teeth. And then this was the point. It talks about in Peter, 1 Peter, about it. I've got it here. Your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. So there's this picture of the devil and this roaring lion, and it's almost brought together in the wicked. So the wicked bring it all together as beast-like and unpredictable,
Mm.
and something that in our day-to-day lives, you don't. I think we must look out for those qualities in people, not having peace in their lives, which is what we ultimately look for.
Such a sort of terrible picture of destruction, like a wild beast, as you said, that David felt a few times, that his enemies were like lions or bulls or dogs and things like that, just how vicious they were.
Yeah. Okay, verse 16, this talks about the riches of the wicked, and it talks about how no matter how much wealth we may have, if we're not striving for a righteous life, we don't have the qualities of what God is asking for. He says, for the arms of the wicked, verse 16, a little that a righteous man hath is better than the riches of many wicked. So no matter how little wealth we have, if we have an abundance of riches, because in a righteous man, this is so much more valuable than what the wicked have. Even if the wicked have an abundance of wealth, we must strive to have a righteous spirit over wealth and riches, which I think is really nice.
It seems to be this aspect of deliverance here again, that it sort of reminded me when we thought all the way back with James Phil in Psalm 7, where he sort of painted that picture of the courtroom in Psalm 7 verse 11 about God judging the righteous, and God is angry with the wicked every day. And it's almost like, by referencing back to that, what you've been saying, Ethan, it is again by not fretting yourself, not worrying yourself with the wicked and what they do. You know, God, the arms of the wicked shall be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. And again, it's sort of this deliverance that God is going to give to us if we commit our ways to him, like you've been saying, and really trust in him.
And then it next speaks about the arms of the wicked being broken. And I did think it was a little bit strange. Why be so specific about the arms being broken? And after a bit of thought, it makes a lot of sense, because your arms are where the strength is meant to come from. I'm not sure about me, but the strength is where the arms are symbolic of where your power comes from, your strength. And the picture immediately comes to mind when it says, but the Lord upholdeth the righteous. And when you think back to Moses on the mount, and you have her on one side and you have Aaron on the other, and this verse just brought that picture to life, because the arms of the wicked are broken. And so without your arms, you can't hold yourself up, you can't show that power of strength. And it's just ultimately, there's all throughout this chapter, there's the consummation of the wicked, there's it's all about the destruction of the wicked. So I think this is the culmination of it, because without your arms, you're broken. So I think the image of Moses on the mount showing off the power of God, and I think it's nice because it shows God may show that we do not have to uphold our own strength, because God had Aaron and her to hold up the arms of Moses. It wasn't through Moses' own power that he had to uphold his arms, and I think the lesson I drew from that is that God is able to provide that strength, that support through other people. So just how you Phil and Jord, you were able to offer the support and the strength for me by upholding, by bringing me forward on this platform, because it is great for me. I'm glad you asked me, but I think God provides that powerhouse and that way to lift up someone's strength through other people. And it's not, we shouldn't have to rely on ourselves to show the power that God brings into our lives. So I think we have to show that through, and just how I hope to try and bring God's strength through speaking to you today and all those listening.
Great. There's powerful metaphors that we can easily relate to, of arms and hands, and I guess in time of David even more so, when he was a warrior and he needed to wield his sword and his shield and fight in battles as well.
Yeah, and we see the next verse, it talks about the consuming, the wicked being consumed. Psalm 37 is all about the destruction of the wicked. It's, as we spoke about at the beginning, the goats, and Jordan, nice point about they just eat everything, even no matter what it is. So to take away from today is the contrast between the righteous on the right hand and the unrighteous, and the difference between what God will do for
them. And that takes us all the way back really to what we established at the very opening of the Psalms, doesn't it, Phil? With Psalm 1, it was the invite from God to the individual of the way of the righteous or the way of the wicked, and it was a choice sort of that God left us on, wasn't it? Of well, which path are we going to take? Which way are we going to follow? And throughout the Psalms that we've looked at that David penned, we see that theme so often, as you brought out to this evening, Ethan, that David was striving to follow that right way with God, and at times, as we've looked at so often with the enemies, that was such a challenge. And I suppose it's no different for us. We might not have men, chasing us around caves and all that sort of stuff, but we still have our own challenges and enemies, in everyday life, don't we? They just come in different forms.
Yeah, so I think to finish, my last point that I love, this Psalm 37 is an acronym. So each verse begins with a different letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And then it's strange because verse 29, there's almost a break. So one of the letters in the alphabet is left out. And there's a bit of a dispute as to whether this is an error or. But I like the point that it's there to prove a point, to bring it out as something different. Because if this was to have been sung, it's like saying the alphabet. If I were to say A, B, C, D, F, G, it would stick out like a sore thumb. You'd know straight away, and you'd pay attention. And this verse comes in and it says, "The righteous shall inherit the land and dwell therein forever." So I think it just brings it all together really nicely, because as the righteous, that is our ultimate goal, to be together with God in that kingdom and dwell there forever. So I think that's a lovely point to end on.
Fantastic. So, Jord, what's your main point that you take then from this psalm for us in these challenging times?
I think there's been lots of things to dwell upon. I really liked how you started, Ethan, with the goats and the sheep, and thinking about being a sheep and feeding on the grass of those green pastures that God brings us to. And really about that aspect of, fret not thyself. Throughout you've looked at tonight this aspect of God delivering us from the enemy, which is what David brings out. And like I said, I don't have enemies in a sense like David did, but we've all got challenges and we all worry, and especially at this moment in time, it feels like we're starting to come out of lockdown and different things like that, but we don't know what lies around the corner, do we? And I think that phrase that kept coming up of fret not yourself, commit yourself to the Lord, delight yourself in the Lord, all those phrases that you've beautifully brought out for us tonight, I think I'm going to really try and take those with me and remember that you know, God's arm is there. He's given us through his right arm, the Lord Jesus. He gives us each other, as you said, which is really comforting. And like you said, to finish on, I think that beautiful point of, you know, dwelling in the land with God and looking for that time can really encourage us to not fret and to not worry. So thank you so much for your thoughts tonight, and for all those who have been watching.
Great. So thank you for everyone who's watched this far, and may God bless you all as you to trust in the Lord and wait upon him. Till next time, God willing. Bye.
Thank you both.
God bless.